And we're back. So hopefully you can all see me, you can all hear me. I've remembered to turn the microphone back on. We'll just give it a second or two for people to catch up. So we are back. Let's put it in here. We're back. So if you can't see me, you'll need to refresh, but it should automatically start for you in a second or two. Hi, Sarah. Scooby-Doo, do you want to come and say hello? Does Scooby-Doo want to come and say hello? Come and say hello, Scooby-Doo. Oh, do you want to tell everybody things? Come on then. Come up and tell people. Come up then. Come on, up, 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 up. Up, up. Good boy. Oh, he's got things to tell you. What do you want to tell them? Are you going to tell them things? Are you going to tell them things? Look in there, Scooby-Doo. Look. Tell them things. What? You don't want to tell them things now. You just want to look. And woof woof. Is that right? Oh, really? Okay. Do you want to sing? Do you want to sing? La la la. You want to sing, Scooby-Doo? Scooby-Dooby-Doo-Doo-Doo-Doo. Come on, you're not getting up on the desk. That's a no. No, that's a no. That's a no. If you are looking to sign into my class site, Scooby is the name that you need to get into the site. It's the password. Scooby. Scooby. Tell them your name, Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo. See? Ooh. Ooh. Is that right? Oh, okay then. You going to sing everybody a song? Oh, what a nice song. What a nice song. Ooh, wow, wow, that's right. That's his signature tune. Ooh, woo, 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 wow, wow. Oh, ooh, what a lovely song. What a good boy you are. Let me give you a belly rub. Oh, careful, careful, careful. Yeah, I'll give you a belly rub. There you go. Mwah. Get down now. Good boy. There we go. You're going to behave now. You said hello to everyone. What about Miss Maddie? Does Miss Maddie need to say hello? Come on then. Oh, there's Miss Maddie. Say hello to your fans. Miss Maddie, look. Say hello to the fans. Oh, look. I'm on telly, Mummy. Oh, I'm on telly, Mummy. Look. Oh, burping in my face. Yeah, that's classy. You're a classy bird, my love. You classy bird. Yes, you are. Classy bird. Mwah. Kissy, kissy. Hey, Mommy, kissy, kissy. Hi, hi, hi. Kissy, kissy. No? All right, then you can get down then. If you're not going to do kissy, kissies. No, you are. Okay. Mwah. Good girl. You two go play. Right. Oh. If it's not loading, go out and come back in again. It might have sent you to a different link. Sometimes it depends if you're on mobile or not. Sometimes it sends you to a different link. But it worked for Sarah and it worked for Bren. So in theory, it should work for everybody. Oh, iPad. No, close it down and start again. Come back. iPads are notorious for sending you to a different link. What do you put in a book of shadows? That kind of depends on lots of things. If you're a Wiccan, where sort of paganism is your religion, then it might be things like rituals and chants and correspondences, altar setups, all that kind of stuff. History of witchcraft, history of the Sabbats, the Wheel of the Year, etc., etc. If you are a ritualistic pagan, by which I mean you're not Wiccan specifically, but you treat it as if it is a religion and you worship the god and goddess kind of stuff, then you may have all that, but you may also have other things that you want to add to it, like spells and incantations and all sorts of things like tarot readings or astronomical readings or whatever. If you are what Wiccans call a solitary practitioner, and what the rest of us just call a witch, or a kitchen witch, it's sometimes known as, or an eclectic witch, or whatever, and you don't really treat it like a religion, it's just something that you do. You may even be of a different religion, but you do witchcraft, like herbs and potions and things like that. Then it might be your speciality, or it might be bits and pieces that you learn, or things that you observe, or it could be like a journal where you keep a record of your own spirituality outside of the religious context. I suppose in terms of other religious books, think of a Book of Shadows for a Wiccan is like a Bible. For a religious pagan, it is more like a Bible study book, or, you know, going to a Bible study. And for an eclectic witch, for the eclectic witches, our Books of Shadows are more like the kind of general spiritual journal that somebody who is Christian but not orthodox in any way. So, you know, you don't do scripture readings. You might go to church and you might do things like that, but you don't specifically study the Bible. You don't study scripture. You don't, you know, you might just journal about gratitude. You might just keep a gratitude journal or something like that. So my journal is a bit more that kind of stuff. I put things that I want to be able to reference quickly, things that I like that I just want to be able to decorate, like the Wheel of the Year. I mean, I don't need a picture in my Book of Shadows that shows me a pentagram. I know this off by heart. Okay, so this stuff, I don't need that in there. It doesn't need to be in there, because the only things I really need in my Book of Shadows is stuff that I have learned and stuff that I want to remember, or stuff that I need reminding of. But I put that in because it's part of my basic tradition, and it means something specific to me. The beginning here, like a Wiccan would normally have like something like the Wiccan Read. Well, I'm not a Wiccan. The Wiccan Read means nothing to me. I don't believe in the rule of three. I believe in karma, but not in the way Wiccans believe in it. I don't worship the god and goddess or anything like that. But I do have the Norse Read of Honour, because that speaks to me, and it's part of my tradition. Now, I know that off by heart, but I've still got it in here, just as you would if you had a journal that you were keeping journals about your Bible or about your spiritual experiences and things like that. You might not be studying scripture specifically, but you might have the Serenity Prayer in the front, or you might have the Lord's Prayer, or, you know, your rosary things, or anything like that. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be something like the Lord's Prayer specifically, which is like the main one. For those who can't get the stream working again, I don't know how to get it back, especially if you're on an iPad. I'm sorry, I just don't. Hopefully somebody else will be able to help you. The best thing I can say is, if all else fails, turn off completely and reload. Not just out of YouTube, but reboot your iPad and come back in that way. And go to my page and see if it's sending you to a different link, because it might be sending you to an old link instead of a new link. It should refresh, but it's Apple. It could be doing anything. But when somebody with an iPad does figure out what you need to do to get it to work again, please let me know so that I can let everybody else know. Yeah, so I've got the Norse Reed of Honour in the front. Then I've got, because I have a tradition, but I'm not Wiccan specifically, I have a little bit about my beliefs. And then I have kind of an overview of what the key parts of that belief structure is. I am very eclectic when it comes to witchcraft. My tradition is, I'm basically of the Granny Weatherwax variety. I believe in headology. I fully believe that there's an awful lot of times that you don't need to spend the energy casting a spell. If you can just make people believe that you've cast a spell, that will work just as well. If you are not familiar with Discworld, that might not make any sense, but look it up on Wikipedia. There's a whole section on headology, Granny Weatherwax. She's my hero, okay? She may be a mythical, a fictional character. She's still my hero, you know? She's got the thing, she's got the right thing going on. There's a couple of very good quotes from Granny Weatherwax that I want to put into my Book of Shadows. There's one part, I think, in Witches Abroad, where she says, witches aren't superstitious, witches are what other people are superstitious of. And she's got, what's that one? Oh, I can never remember it. There's one about, you have to, as a witch, you know you've really kind of made it as a witch. This is paraphrasing, it's not how it's worded. He words it so much better. But it basically says that when you walk into a forest, you shouldn't be scared of anything. You should be absolutely confident that as a witch, you are the scariest thing in that forest. And that is her whole attitude to things. I'll read you a little bit of this because it makes more sense. Headology bears a lot of similarities to psychology in that it requires the user to hold a deep-seated understanding of the workings of the human mind in order for it to be truly successful. However, headology tends to differ from psychology in that it usually involves approaching a problem from a different angle. It has been said that the difference between headology and psychology is this. Were you to approach either with the belief that you were being chased by a monster, a psychiatrist would try to convince you that there are no monsters coming after you. Whereas a headologist would hand you a bat and a chair to stand on. And that's, you know, that is one of the things that I've put into my book, because for me it encapsulates what I believe. That as a witch, you're basically a badass, and you need to be very careful how you use that, and sometimes using your badassery is not necessary. Sometimes just having people think that you might use your badassery on them is more than enough to solve a situation. So it's, you know, it's that old Spider-Man thing, with great power comes great responsibility and all that. So yeah, that's the kind of thing I've put in my personal Book of Shadows, but it's a lot easier if you look up Book of Shadows Wicca, W-I-C-C-A. You'll get basically a list of what everybody should have in their Book of Shadows, because it's a bit like a Bible. There is a set format to, you should have this in there, you should have the incarnation of the goddess, you should have the cantation of the god, you should have the wheel of the year, you should have the ritual for opening a circle and closing a circle and setting up your altar and correspondences and this, that and the other, and then you can start writing in other stuff that you want to keep. So look up Wicca and you'll find a very set list of the kind of things that you would put in it. But like I say, for me it's more like a journal. It's just my personal journal of my personal beliefs and discoveries, and in that sense it changes over time. because although I've been a headologist since I was quite little, I have to admit, when I first started keeping a book of shadows, I followed the, you should have this in the first page of your book, and then you should have this, and then you should have this, and then you should draw out this, and you should have this, and this, and this. And I followed the set ways. And as I've progressed over the years, it's turned into more of a journal. Some people treat it like a reference book. And if you do a lot of, I think that's why Wiccans tend to have it very set list of what they include, because they tend to do rituals and things throughout the year. So you have set things that you do, whereas witches don't. We don't have that kind of... I mean, I will do, like, there's a blood moon coming up, or a super moon coming up again at the end of the month. I will do a super moon ritual and cleanse my crystals and all that kind of stuff, because it's a special moon, but I don't do something on every single full moon, whereas a Wiccan might. And they would certainly have a lunar spell or ritual in their book. So I hope that goes some way to explaining it a little bit. Right, let's shift cameras. For those of you who've been having trouble getting the stream back up, you might want to try it again now, because changing cameras might change the settings as well. And I am starting to get a bit froggy now, so I apologise if I keep clearing my throat. I've picked up a few extra pens here that I wanted to try just out of my big box of pens. This is my big dump box of pens. A lot of these are ballpoints, which you don't need to test because they're not wet ink. Although it is sometimes a good idea to try a ballpoint just to see if it smudges or how long it takes to dry. This is my witchy ballpoint. Look at this, isn't it cute? My best friend at school gave me this when I was about 11, and I've still got it. It's a little owl with a crystal. It's an aventurine crystal. And it comes out, you can pull these out and refill it with Bic fine point, the yellow ballpoint pen refills. Well, you can fill it with any Bic refill, but I use the fine points. So it is refillable, it's just a pain to do it. Let's just, for the sake of completeness... Ooh, don't tell me it's run out. I was just using it this morning. No, it hasn't. It's just dried up. For the sake of completeness, Bic fine ballpoint. Yeah, dry instantly. Now, see this one on a Hobonichi paper. I'm sorry that I keep turning the page. I normally write like this. That's how I write. So I'm struggling a little bit to keep it in camera frame. Yeah, on Hobonichi paper that doesn't dry instantly, it smudges. And it can also depend how wet your pen is. I also have a Uniball, this is the Signo DX. So I will draw a little, now obviously this is a wet pen, so this is going to smudge a little bit. So I'm not going to smudge test this, I only do that with the dry one. So this is the Uniball Signo. You would not believe the weird angle I'm having to sit at to get... I can't write like that, I'm sorry. I have to do it this way. Uniball Signo UM151DX. And that's perfectly fine as well. Yep, this is literally all I do. This is the Zebra Mild Liner. Oh, a little bit of ghosting, because it's quite wet. Little bit of ghosting. Oh, everything. Oh, that's good. So you can get it working on your phone, and you've got the chat open on your iPad. I don't know why that doesn't make any sense. Because if you're in the chat, you should be able to see the video. How weird is that? I don't know. We'll just put it down to Apple, shall we? Being weird. Yeah, it ghosts a little bit, but it didn't bleed through. And that's quite a wet pen. I've also got this pen, this is a super tip marker. I bought them because they had a cute little elephant on. Aren't they adorable? And they came in this equally adorable little elephant tin. Isn't that cute? Which I've now got all my pencils in that I use. Well, not all my pencils, but the ones that I use all the time are in there. But I've had a set of these and they are exactly like the Crayola markers. They might even be Crayola markers by a different name, because they are exactly the same as far as I can tell. Even the colours match. So this is the Super Tip elephant marker. Nothing. This is good. This is really good. I've also got the jelly rolls, Sakura jelly rolls. I know a lot of people like to use these for decorating when they're writing. So, oops. So this is the Sakura glaze. These are the 3D pens. And this is the souffle. So the glaze is shiny and the souffle is matte, but they're both supposed to be raised. Oh, I think that one might be run out. This one's gone a little bit dry. So dump it in some water. Clean the nib, see if that helps. That one's gone dry. So this is what I don't like about these jelly roll pens. I mean, look at that. It's a almost brand new pen and it's gone dry. Let me try a different one. It's a pink one. Okay, that one's dry as well. Either it's dry or it's not working on this paper. So let's get some ordinary paper. No, it's not working. So those have all gone dry. They're rubbish. But the glaze worked okay, and it's raised as well, so that worked all right. And then I've got, this is just a general rollerball ink roller, 0.7, quick drying non-fading liquid ink. So it's not waterproof or anything like that. So this is the A+ Liquidy. That came through a tiny bit, but I did go over where I'd already gone through the paper a little bit, so I don't think that's a very good test. I should perhaps do that one again. A little bit of ghosting, nothing horrendous. And then I've got the Stabilo 0.88. Now these are notorious for bleeding through things because they're, I'm not sure if they're alcohol based, but they definitely bleed through an awful lot of stuff. But they are very, very, very fine, and they're waterproof, which is always a good thing. So the 0.88, Yeah, a little bit of ghosting, nothing horrendous. And then the Tri Plus, which are the water-soluble version by Statler. Again, a little bit of ghosting. So felt tips, a little bit of ghosting, but nothing horrendous. You can see it's not bleeding through or anything like that. Now we get on to the fun stuff, because I have all these inks to play with. My pen was a gift. Don't ask me where it came from. It's just a glass pen holder that I've changed the nib in it, because it came with an italic nib and I've changed it to a superfine, because with my writing, how could I possibly use an italic nib? It's far too tiny. So I've got, these are the inks that I've already tried. And when I'm swapping inks with a dip pen, I have a pot of water. Clean water, not stuff that's got watercolour all over it, and a cloth. The reason I use a cloth instead of a tissue or kitchen towel is because kitchen towel has fibres on it, and that will get caught on the nib of your pen, and you can clog up the nib of your pen doing that. So I just use a regular soft cloth. So this is Imperial Blue DIamine. Dip your pen in so that it comes up to cover the hole. That's where the ink is held. You don't need to dip the entire nib in, especially if you're only doing a pen test. Oh, I love this nib, it's so thin. Imperial Blue DIamine plus dip. I sound like I can keep repeating myself. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing over and over with different pens. That didn't come through. So then I just wash my pen off in the water, dry it off, and try another ink. Oh, I better not put my inks back in there. I'll forget which ones I've used, won't I? This is Orange DIamine. And these are crystal clear inks, so you don't need to shake them up. The acrylic inks and the watercolour inks, like the Winsor & Newton ones, you'd have to shake them up. Dog hair in my ink. Oh, this smells nice. Oh, it smells like marigolds. Oh, I wonder if that's something to do with the colouring. The very superfine line on this dip pen is a tiny bit scratchy, but that is almost certainly the way I use my dip pen, because I write vertically with it. So this is Orange DIamine. With a dip pen, you're supposed to use a 45-degree angle. So the front of the pen should be at that angle to where you're writing. But I am weird. I write like a left-handed right-hander because I am a left-handed right-hander. Back in the days when I was at school, you weren't allowed to be left-handed. And, you know, goodness me, if you were left-handed and had red hair, that was it. You pretty much burned at the stake for being a witch. Which, ironically... This is yellow, so it won't show up on camera, almost certainly. No, the orange actually, it does show up the same colour. The yellow is a completely different colour. It's a lot more golden yellow in the bottle, and it comes up a lot more bright yellow. I think it's just the bright colours being blown out by the camera. The colour is actually very true on the DIamine inks. And then I've got burnt sienna. I'm running through these kind of quickly because these are the ones I've already done. I want to get onto the new ones. Again, these are ones Lali sent me. She shares her inks with me, bless her, because she's got so many. So this is burnt sienna, DIamine again. Yeah, that's a good point actually, Caitlin. Do you have your chat popped out, or has it popped out on you? It's got to be a setting somewhere, or it's redirecting you to something and it shouldn't be. This is my favourite, I think. I hope this picks up on camera because, oh look, dog hair. Who's been getting dog hairs in my ink, puppies? I haven't tried oxblood, but I want some. I do. Oxblood is one of my favourite colours. Oxblood and rose madder. This is crimson. And it is the colour of blood. Literally the colour of blood. It's beautiful. Dried blood, I hasten to add. Hopefully the colour will pick up if nothing else. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I actually talked about where I got it all in the previous segment, Bo. Eve, can you put up the link to my A store again, please? There's a link. Oh, if she's still here. I don't even know if she's still here. There's a link on rhomany.org.uk to my Amazon store where you can see the links to all of these journals. If you're in the UK or the EU, you can use my A store, and if not, if you're in the US, you can use Journal Artista's store at journalartista.com. Woodland Green, another DIamine. I think all these are DIamine. Yeah, I think it was just, oops, I think it was just before you came in. Eh. Oh, now it's all messy. Now I've dropped my pen on the floor. Okay, hang on a minute. Suck that ink up. Oh, should have known that was going to happen eventually, shouldn't I? I'm so klutzy. But, you know, that's a good test. Let's see if it bled through, shall we? Wow! Are you impressed? Thanks, Danielle. Look at that. That big blob of ink didn't even go through the page. Why are we even testing these? What's the point? Now, part of that will be because, as you saw, I didn't press the ink down. If I'd pressed the ink down, it would have pushed it down into the fibres and it probably would have come through the other side. I didn't do that. I used just a bit of a corner of a paper towel, as you saw, to just put it into the ink and lift it up. if you had gone like that and blotted it, it would have spread everywhere and it probably would have pushed it down into the fibres of the paper. But look at that, it didn't even come through. It hasn't even shown, doesn't even show that it was wet on the back. I am so impressed with this paper, it's awesome. I do not understand why people come to me and say, this paper doesn't take my fountain pen. Unless you're a really slow writer with a very, very, very wet pen, I cannot imagine that this would bleed for any reason. And I've got dog hairs all over my pen. Professional outfit here, guys. There we go. Let's try that again without the oops. Look, another dog hair. Maddie, why are there dog hairs in my ink? Another one. Oh, seriously, come on. This is ridiculous. Right. Woodland green. This is a very wet ink. This is staying on the pen much, much wetter than the others did. It's a very Christmassy ink. It's gorgeous green. There's a rebuild going on. That shouldn't be happening. Just go to rhomany.org.uk and in the top right hand corner there's a link to Row Recommends. Go into it that way. It shouldn't be saying that there's a rebuild. That's a completely different page. How weird. Dog fur gets in everything. I'm sure one of the reasons that I'm sneezing at the moment is probably because I've got dog hair in my sinuses. This ink is still wet. Even now, that green is still wet. But it didn't bleed. Don't know why I'm checking, because it didn't bleed there either. In the interests of not having it smudge everywhere, I'm just going to... See, you just lay the tissue in and it picks the paint, picks the ink right up. Is my... I think my thing's moved again. Can't even pee alone. Yeah, it's like having two kids, isn't it? Yeah, ad blockers will cause a problem. Because it is an ad. It is an A store. But you can set it so that it ignores that page. You just go into your ad blocker and say ignore ads on this page. There are no other ads on my site. I hate ads. They drive me nuts. But the A store it classes as an ad because it's an affiliate link. Okay, let's see what beauties Lali has sent me today. Is she here yet? Is Alex with us yet? She did say she was going to try and make it. Oh, look at what we've got. Okay, she's sent me... Oh, it looks like I've got some of the same colours. Oh, she might have sent me mostly the same colours. Hang on. Woodland green. Yep, I've got woodland green. But that's okay, because I'll use that a lot. I'll use a lot of that green because I really like that colour. I'll use all of them, actually. Because now that I know that they all work on this paper, I'll probably colour with them. I'll do that in a second. Imperial blue, we've tested that one already. Orange, we've got that one. Burnt sienna. Crimson, It's my favourite. I love the crimson one. The yellow I don't have. I've sent me the pink instead. So I've got a few duplicates here. So Foxy, you can have a blue and a orange and a brown. I'll trade you. So the new one I've got is the hot pink DIamine. It's my own fault. She asked me to send her a list of what she'd already sent me, and I forgot to do it. So she sent me duplicates. Hi, Lily. Oh, yeah, I've got green all over me. These are stain inks. They're not washable. They are washable. They will wash off eventually. But they don't wash off straight away. You have to get a bit of... I use whitening toothpaste, but you can also use like alcohol or nail polish remover or something. I find a bit of whitening toothpaste takes it off really easily without drying your hands out. But it's not going to come off at the moment with just plain water. So let's try the pink. Oh, if I hadn't put the Copic there, I could have put the pink on the bottom line there. Okay. I should have put the Copic on the other side with the thick markers. Oh, look at this colour. How beautiful is that colour? Can you see it on screen? Oh, it is actually picking up on screen. Now, for those who've been asking about when I'm doing my dreads, because I am going back to my dreads again. I am going back away from the black. This is the colour my hair is going to be when I'm done with it. Let me put the lid. Oh, can you see it better there in the white lid? No, it blows out. This is the colour I'm going to have. It is basically, it's rose madder. Thank you. It's a glass hand blown one. It was a gift. And I've put my own nib in it because it came with an italic nib and I don't use italic nibs. Well, I do for lettering, but not for writing. Let's try this pink. I'm so excited to try this pink. I'm actually going to put it up here in between the orange and yellow where the bright colours are because I can fit another row of tests in here. So, oh my goodness. Oh, this is, what's it called? Hope Pink. Hope. Oh, this is gorgeous. Now, depending on what your monitor is set to and everything else and how it picks up on my camera, it may not pick up properly. Let's see how well it picks up. Yeah, it looks like dark orange on the camera to me. But I assure you, it is pink. Like, seriously pink. Let's see if I can find a comparison pink. Oops. That fluorescent highlighter is actually lighter. Let's try Crayola pink. No, that's way lighter. The Papermate Flare is more of a purple. This is more of a cool blue colour. Whereas that's more of a dark purpley pink. I'm trying to find anything that is the same colour as. It's actually the same colour as the casing on my Stabilo highlighter, but of course the highlighter won't show up the same colour on screen either. But it is beautiful. Trust me, it's beautiful. So there's a whole range of inks. These are all DIamine inks. Now that doesn't mean that another ink won't bleed through. The thing that a lot of people, let me switch over. The thing that a lot of people forget when they're talking about, one of my least favourite question is does this paper take fountain pen ink? Because it completely depends on everything. You cannot answer that question. Even if you have two people with identical pens, identical nibs, identical inks, brand new pens filled at the same time from the same bottle, because of the way they write differently, one will bleed, one might not, one might smudge, one might not. Even the speed that you write at, I mean, I write tiny, so I write quite fast. If you've got big, slow, loopy writing, and you stop at the end of every letter, then simply from having your pen pressed down on the paper, you're going to be saturating that spot with ink, so you might get bleed. I don't get bleed because I barely touch the pen to the paper. So for me, these DIamine inks work beautifully for my dip pen. If you've got a thicker dip pen, or you press heavier than I do, or you use more ink than I do, it might not work for you. And that's the difficulty. Although I don't think anybody would have a problem with these DIamine inks. Judging by the way that big blot of ink didn't even seep into the paper, I don't think anybody would have a problem with DIamine on this paper. But, you know, even me, having used this on a dip pen, I cannot guarantee that if I put this in a fountain pen and refilled it into a cartridge, like if I put this into here's my carbon pen that I use that's got brown watercolour ink in it at the moment. When I clean this out, if I put this into the cartridge, I cannot guarantee that this pen won't bleed, even though it's the same ink, because this pen acts differently. This pen is a pen with a cartridge in it. So if I refill the cartridge might force more ink through the pen. Whereas a dip pen, by definition, it only has a little bit of ink on it. So you do have to be careful. You have to test your own stuff. Now, what I also do is I use, if I can find my inking brush. There's one. Where's the other one? There's my other inking brush. There he is. So these are what I use if I want to do art with ink. I would not use just, well, you could use a water brush with them without any water in it. You could probably put this ink in a water brush actually, because it is water soluble ink. But you won't be able to put anything else in this water brush ever again because it will stain like crazy. But you can, you know, these are cheap enough to buy and just use for colouring. But I wouldn't use anything bigger than that kind of size brush. I'd say that's about a 2 with ink, because ink is not like watercolour. I like these very fine. These are, I think one's 10/8 of an inch and one's 12/8 of an inch. And these are the tackle-on tips. I'm going to use the, what shall I use? I use the green, I think, because the green stands out quite well, even though I threw it everywhere earlier. I'm not going to test my lamp black because I'm keeping this for spell writing and I've resealed it. But that is basically the same as carbon ink, which is that one. So if you missed my Witchy Wednesday on lamp black and carbon ink and using my Willow dip pen, I did do a proper a proper video on using a dip pen with ink and how to clean it and how to look after it and everything else. Go and check that out. When I do the replay, I will make sure I put the link in. Hi, Ingville. But do make sure that if you're using these little vials, they are stable. Sorry, Faith, you're not putting your questions in caps, so I missed them. Yes, I use them for writing and art. Yes, the inks come off with water. They're water-soluble inks, so yes. They will stain the tackle on heads, but that doesn't bother me. If you're going to use these in order to prevent the spillage that we had earlier, and hence this mess, which drives me bananas, I can't stand getting ink all over my hands. I'm not a messy painter, and I don't like having ink all over me. The best suggestion I can give you is to get one of these pillar candle votive holders, and you can put your ink in there, and it will basically not fall over. And because this is flat, it's not going to tip over. It's quite solid. It's quite heavy. So unless you literally physically dropped it like that off the top of your book, you're not going to have a problem. Now that said, that's almost certainly what I would do. But you can see this is it's spilling a little bit. It's spilt a tiny bit because it's quite full, this one. But you know, I hold my ink like this. I like to use a damp brush, not a wet brush, because it soaks up less ink. And you can literally paint with the ink. And what I do, it's hard to show you on film, but I dip my brush into my ink, but not up to the top of the brush. Just sort of halfway up the brush, because it will suck up. You don't want to do it all the way up to the shank. Do it halfway, and then as you come out of the ink, kind of roll it against the corner. That'll give you a point, and it'll take off any excess ink that you've got on your brush. So we could do this as kind of a leaf design if we wanted to. And obviously you can get really thin lines, or you can get thicker lines, or you could get teardrop shapes. So it's a very versatile way of using your ink. Now if your ink pools like this and you want to go back and fill in some more shapes, what I suggest you do is wait until your ink runs out off your brush. So it'll take a while. Even something simple like this is, it's decoration. It doesn't have to be crazy doodles to be decoration. Okay, there's my thirsty brush. It's starting to run out of ink. I would normally dip it. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put it back into this puddle of ink. It's called a thirsty brush. Your brush is dry. It wants liquid, so it will suck up. So it's doing the same as the tissue paper was doing earlier. You put it into the pool of ink and it will suck up the ink. And incidentally, that's the test of a good brush. If you put your brush down in a little bubble of water and it sucks it up, that's the test of a good brush. You'll find with like kids' brushes and stuff, they don't do that. See, now we've got a reloaded brush. And out of just that blot, I've got 2 lines. It's just running out again now. wash your brush thoroughly. Don't let these little thin brushes sit in water. You will really badly knacker the ends. Seriously. Do not do it, ever. Don't let them sit in water. Also, don't scrub them like that in anything. It's not necessary. You dip them in the ink, wash them out without touching the bottom of the pan, shake it off, roll it, and stroke it till the water comes out. If you're not 100% sure that it's dry, take a bit of kitchen towel or something like that, lay it flat, lay your brushes flat on it so that the bristles are touching the tissue paper, and that will make sure that there's no water left in this shank, because again, what goes up also comes down. So if you dip the end of the brush in and it sucks up water, then by putting a piece of paper towel next to the brush, it will pull water down. Okay, and as you can see, the brush I just used, the DIamine did not stain it. Now that could have been to do with how well I washed it or the particular colour. Some inks have different dyes in them. You can't guarantee that they're not going to stain your brushes. But usually, I find they don't stain. You can put that back. I've got a bit of ink transfer in there, so I'm just going to wipe that out, because if I get another, I don't want to transfer that green ink into another ink by accident. So I'll just wash it out. A little bit of water. Like so, and we're ready for the next one. I've run out of ink now. No, I haven't. I've got black and white acrylic. So black and white acrylic, these are a different type of ink. Acrylic ink is not water, it's water-based, but it's not, it's like acrylic paint versus watercolour paint. Once it dries, it's waterproof. Whereas these, there's a good chance if you get these wet afterwards, some of them will move with water. I haven't tested them, obviously. Now, I wouldn't use... Where did my pen go? I don't know. Oh, there it is. I wouldn't use this with this, because this is my ink pen. I have a different pen that I use for using acrylic inks, because acrylic inks will knacker your nibs, basically. You will go through several different nibs. Now this has got water in where I've cleaned it, so I'm just going to take that out. See, the whole thing comes out like that. I'm just going to dry inside that barrel so it doesn't rust the holder in any way. Like that. Dry that off. Make sure this is dry. Might as well clean the top of the nib while I'm there. And gently slide it back in. Okay, so that's that. Let me find my dip pens. Hang on. Here's my dip pens. I store my dip pens upwards with the points up. Be careful, because some of these are really, really sharp. You still can't get the recommended list to work. I don't know how to get it to work then, because it was working for people earlier, so I don't know. I'm good with computers, but I'm I'm not a wizard. These are italic nibs, and I've got a calligraphy nib there. I've got a Chinese brush pen, a Chinese calligraphy bamboo pen that I use. This is the one that I got from Pagan Parcel, which has got a beautiful fine point on it. Ow, I just stabbed myself on that. This is what happens if you use these lacquered pens with acrylics. You see that? All the lacquer is flaked off because the wood gets wet because of how you have to clean them. So I don't recommend doing that. I recommend using either a plastic shank like this. This is another of my calligraphy nibs. Or I actually use this one. I love this pen. I use this pen for everything. All sorts of things. It's so comfortable to write with. It's got a beautiful nib on it. Again, it was a present. It used to be an original quill, and I was given the gold nib to go on it. So this is actual gold. And because of that, I think it's beautiful to write with for acrylics, because it cleans. I've used this all the time for acrylic and it just comes off. Just run it under hot water and it comes off. So let's try the black first. No, let's try the white first. No, let's try the black first. Okay, I'll shut up now. Yeah, I don't know what the thing is with the site. I'm sorry. It should work. That's all I can tell you. Again, it's like inks. It can depend on your browser even. Now, normally with these inks, I would drop a little bit out into a pot or a lid or something, but I don't. Oh, yes, I do have a lid that I can use. I've got a lid of a Coke bottle. That'll do. Because you don't need very much ink. You only need to be able to dip your pen in it. So I'm just going to put that much in. The reason you want to do that is because you don't really want to leave these with the lids off, because they will thicken and dry out. So let's try some acrylic ink. So this is obviously not going to allow you to dip it right down into to cover the hole, but acrylic ink is much thicker, so you just want a good covering on your nib. And it will write perfectly. So again, it's a very wet ink, but this time it will be waterproof when it dries. So Daler-Rowney FW Acrylic Artist. Ink. And as long as you don't let it dry on your nib, you should be able to wash most of it off and then simply wipe the rest away. Don't let acrylic ink dry on your nib. You will knacker your nib. Are you seeing a pattern? There's a lot of ways you can knacker your nibs, trust me. Fortunately, nibs are not very expensive and you can get lots of them very cheaply. But now I'm going to grab an acrylic brush. I always use an acrylic brush for acrylic ink. And I like these white-ended brushes. Again, get it wet before you use it. And then dry it off so that it's touch dry. And what I'm going to do with this is test it for painting on. So that beautiful black. Because we already know that Sumi ink bleeds on this paper. So if you like drawing with Sumi ink, you're not going to be able to do that. Carbon ink works, but not Sumi ink. I don't have any Indian ink to test. Okay. Dry. See, no staining on the brush. And yes, I've got a big old bottle of paint here, and I don't care. I don't waste paint. I can't stand seeing people who pour out like a ton of paint or ink or whatever to use, and then they don't. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by my phone, which is going off. They pour out a ton of paint, and they're only doing like a tiny little bit. It's not necessary. It's not necessary. I will keep that. I'll let that dry and keep that. I've got another one down here anyway. I'm sat next to the recycling. That's why I've got all these bottles. They're not just all over the floor. I've got the recycling bin under my desk. So I've got I very cleverly used the black in the white cap, and now I'm putting the white in the gold cap. Yeah, I'm clever. Now this hasn't dried yet because it's acrylic ink. It will take a little bit longer to dry than normal. Okay, so I'm going to use my heat gun a second. Just to dry it off, and I'm going to go and turn that alarm off because it's getting on my nerves and distracting me. I will be 2 seconds. Hello, Miss Maddie. Okay. Sorry about that. I get really distracted if I can hear something in the background that's not meant to be there. The black does look lovely, doesn't it? It's very sooty, very, very black. Very deep, dark black. So let's check the back. Did it go through? Do. Did it go through? Do. It didn't. Even with all that brush, it didn't go through. Isn't that fantastic? It's not even ghosting, look. Unless you use water or a water-based marker, a thick water-based marker, or a Copic, it doesn't go through. And even the Copic didn't bleed that badly. Oh, I love this paper. It's so pretty. Right. I don't need quite as much white. I'm just going to put a little blob in there. And if I didn't say it before, with these caps, I'll keep these, I'll let them dry and chuck them in my little pot and reuse them. What did I do with my pen? There it is. Now this almost certainly won't show up on camera because it's white ink on a slightly off-white page. It does show up in real life though. It's not overly obvious. But if you wanted to keep something hidden, that you knew it was there and you could see it if you tried, you could actually do that. And because acrylic ink is quite glossy, I would imagine that if you read it like by candlelight and had a flame near it or a torch near it, an LED light, something like that, you would be able to see the writing quite easily. So perhaps for wishes and things, actually if I hold it at that angle I can see it perfectly, I can read it absolutely fine because it's got a slightly raised texture to it, which is rather cool. So, this is what I love about acrylic ink. That black is completely and utterly waterproof now. So I can go through over it with white and it will not budge. Whereas water-based inks, you can't do this. Even with the white acrylic, you can't go over a water-based ink. It will pick up the colour from underneath. Because it's basically re-wetting or reactivating the water in the ink. And just because it's white doesn't mean it won't mess up your pen. You still clean your pen exactly the same as you would normally. Don't ever, 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 if you take nothing away from this lesson except this, take this away. Never, ever, 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 ever leave your pen standing in the water. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. Would you woo. Ever. Seriously, just don't do it. And your ink brushes, don't do it with them either. You shouldn't do it with any brushes really, but I do it with some brushes. As you can see, this is my big hard brush that I use for matte medium. Now if I left this out of water, no, never, Bren, never, never, ever. If I left this out of water, it would go hard, like rock solid hard. So this one I leave in water, but even this one, every so often I will take it out, dry it off thoroughly, and let it kind of half dry, just until the bristles start to go a little bit hard, and then I'll put it back in the water. And I never leave it in the water so that the water comes up past the metal part. Never let the water go up past this. No, not hardly ever, never, ever, ever. Obviously with an ink brush you're getting more ink to layer. Now the white is semi-opaque. The black is opaque, which means you can't see through it. The white is semi-opaque, which means you can't see through it, but other colours underneath will show through it. Okay, so the black showing underneath the white no longer looks white, it now looks grey. So opaque, you can't see through it. Semi-opaque, you can see other colours through it. Translucent, you can see through it. Semi-translucent, you can kind of see through it. Okay? That's the difference, because people tend to think that semi-translucent and semi-opaque are the same thing, and they're not. They're two sides of a middle point. Now I need to let this dry, so I'm going to wash my brush first. See? Now I'm going to dry this layer. And because this ink is totally waterproof and dry, once you dry it off, it's not going to reactivate with water. You can now go in and put a second layer over to make the white starker. And the second time it will go on thicker because there's nothing underneath. Or it'll look thicker, rather, because there's nothing underneath but a kind of light grey. So there's all sorts of possibilities just with 2 colours of ink and a brush and a dip pen. Not everybody likes to doodle, but this is hardly doodling, it's just kind of writing half a letter. I've written M all the way along here, that's hardly doodling, is it? It's not like Zentangling or whatever. It's just making a pretty border. Thirsty brush, pick up the excess ink on there. You can go back over this if I wanted to, because you can letter with this as well, because it's fine. You just don't want to press very hard with it. So even if you're not even vaguely artistic, although I think everybody is artistic and I will happily tell you all about it. In fact, no, I'm not going to get into that today. Go and watch Saturday's little soapbox episode where I got on to talking about how everybody can draw. Everybody has the physical skill to draw if they practice. The difficulty comes with using your imagination, and it's not that you don't have an imagination. If I say orange and you can picture an orange in your mind, then you've got an imagination. It's translating what your mind sees into what your hand can create. That's where people have the difficulty, and that is something that is a learned skill, just like knowing what you want to say and learning the words how to say it. You know, babies know words, they don't necessarily know what they mean, or can put them in a sentence that is grammatically correct and makes sense to the rest of the world. All kids go through that stage where everything gets called ball. Because they think ball means, I want that, please give it to me. But, you know, even if you don't want any kind of drawing or anything in your journal, or you're not a lettering kind of person, something as simple as this, just on the tops of pages as a title, perhaps using a different coloured backgrounds to denote, you know, if you're like me and you don't like to break your book up into sections and you just want to write, perhaps you could have green for herbs, or you could have red for spells, you could have blue for rituals. And you could just put in the colours that you want as the background and then do your writing over the top. And obviously if you're using a lighter colour, yellow, you might want to use brown or black over the top for your writing. If you're using a dark colour like dark purple, then you'd want to use white. So you can use that to indicate as you're flicking through, oh, I know I've got a spell here somewhere that's about such and such. Oh, there we go, there's the spell page because it's red, you know. So you can create your own index without creating an index if you want to. My camera's gone bizarre again. How does that keep happening? Because the tripod doesn't move. It's the weirdest thing. Don't know. Anyway, so the Believe journal in the lined, I think we can call that pretty stellar. I don't think there's much you couldn't throw at that page. Like I say, where I used water over the pens, so it kind of got doubly wet, with a wet pen and then a water over the top, it kind of ghosts through a little bit. The really wet pens, like the mild liner, the zebra mild liner, and the equivalent of the Crayola colour pen, a felt tip, show through a little bit. But again, it's not horrendous. There's no reason, unless you're colouring in something on the back, there's no reason that that would cause a major problem. If you were going to draw something and colour it in with those pens, I wouldn't advise it. But if you're just highlighting bits or drawing lines or, you know, doing a border or something, if it's not going to interfere with what's on the back. And that is basically what I do with every single book I get, without exceptions. Pretty much before I even start using the book, this is what I will do. I've got one in this one, where I tested my inks. Got one in this one. Watch me prove myself a liar now and not have one that doesn't have an ink test page. No, there we go. The back page is always where I test my inks. Oh, stamping inks. We should try stamping inks. Stamping inks. Where have I put my stamping inks? I've got a VersaFine. Oh, and I've got a black archival. Yeah, we should try some inks, because inks are always a bit of an issue. So this is, I've got a smoky grey VersaFine, which I think is a pigment ink. Oil-based pigment ink. And this is the jet black archival ink, which is fade-proof, waterproof. I believe it's an alcohol ink. Yeah, it says they don't bleed when painted over with water-based colours, so it's got to be either oil-based or alcohol-based. And it doesn't say it's oil-based, so I would think it was alcohol ink. This one is an oil-based pigment ink. I also have some dye inks somewhere, but I'm not sure where. Chalk inks work on anything, so if you've got chalk inks, don't worry about those, they'll work anywhere. I have a really cool stamp somewhere that I was hanging around my desk this morning. So I'm just going to see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. Look at that. Isn't it cute? I like these. Now, they're supposed to go on a block, but I don't bother. So let's try it with the grey ink first. This is the pigment ink from VersaFine. I like this grey ink, it's very subtle. Put it over to one side so that I can write next to it what it is. Whoops. Oh, I like that. Oh, that is almost the same colour as the actual book colour. So this is VersaFine Smoky Grey. It's almost exactly the same colour as this. Oh, I like that. Does it bleed? No bleed! Yes! Happy dance. That means this one almost certainly will, but that doesn't bleed. Ah! Pigment ink doesn't bleed, pigment ink doesn't bleed. Let me just write that next to it. VersaFine pigment ink, smoky grey. Doesn't bleed, doesn't bleed, doesn't bleed, doesn't bleed. I'm sorry, I'm very excited. Anybody who does any kind of stamping in any kind of Filofax or planner knows how exciting that experience was. Because it's so difficult to get anything that doesn't bleed when you stamp. Okay, so I'm just going to wipe this off on my cloth. I'm not holding out much hope for this archival ink because it does tend to bleed through everything. I'm pretty sure it is alcohol based. But we'll try. And this is black. This is like stays on ink. The black archival and the black stays on, those are the black inks that everybody likes. Pigment ink is kind of, sometimes it can depend on the colour. You might find that the black VersaFine pigment ink actually does bleed because of the colour. Or you might not. Oh look, dog hairs. Right, let's try this one. It's like pens and inks. Anything, you know, sometimes one colour will bleed and one colour won't. It can depend entirely on the makeup of the actual ink itself. I like that. You see, this stains the stamp. I have to wipe the stamp off afterwards, and it won't come off completely. It'll leave black on the stamp, whereas the grey came off completely. So that is usually a good indicator that it's an alcohol ink, even though it doesn't say it's an alcohol ink. If this one doesn't bleed, I'm going to be over the moon, because it bleeds on everything else. Ooh! Now it has bled. I don't know if you'll be able to see that. It might be too fuzzy. It has bled a tiny bit, but in actual fact I'm not sure it's bleed. I think it might be ghosting. That is certainly not as bad as I would have expected it to be. Because normally that ink bleeds through everything. You can't use it on ordinary paper, it just goes right the way through. See? Bleed. And that's quite good quality paper, actually. That's printer paper as opposed to copier paper. Bleeds straight through. So that is impressive. You like the sound that stamps make when you peel them off? I do, actually. It's kind of a weirdly satisfying noise, isn't it? It's like taking cellophane wrap off something when something's been vacuum packed and you peel it off and it goes... I love it. Yeah, I'm the same. So, there we go. For those who missed the beginning or the first part, or in case it didn't record or whatever, which has happened to me before, these are the black Believe journals. They are exactly the same as my little book that I've been using as an ordinary journal since June. So for all those people who keep saying every time I bring this book out, which book is that? Which book is that? Because some of you have asked several times, and it's the same book. It doesn't look any different. It's the same book. It's just getting more and more chunky here because I keep adding things to it. And having now added so much to it, I want to see if I can get back to the middle up here after Christmas, or up to the end of the year, and see if the spine will hold out. Because I just think that would be awesome if it does. I would be so happy with this little book. I'd probably use it for the rest of my life. Well, not this particular book, but I would get another one to use as a journal. Or I might use the A5. But to be honest, I like this little one because it's, even in its state, in its really thick state like this, it's not very heavy. And you can put a band around it. I have a little... Again, I've got a video on how to do this. It's just a little shanked button with a piece of elastic put through, and I just put that round like that and it holds it together, and I can pop this in my bag. It's no bigger than a Filofax. In fact, it's smaller than my Filofax. So I like this size, and because of having really tiny writing, I think this is a really good size for me for a journal. And it seems to work for about 6 months. So I don't know. I don't know whether to use this big one or not for a journal. Or I might just use these both as books of shadows. Don't know yet. My tarot book is getting very full. Maybe I'll put tarot and astronomy in one, in the lined one, and use this one for my book of shadows. Or I might use one as a book of shadows and one specifically for spells and journal writing or something. I don't know. I don't know. It's so exciting. Over on my blog, rhomany.org.uk. Hopefully the store is working again now. It was working earlier. Well, it was working for me actually, but top right hand corner it's got Row Recommends, and it is an A store. If you are in the UK or the EU, you can use my A store to purchase things off Amazon, and I get like 0.003 pence per purchase or something ridiculous. I keep quoting that as the figure. I don't know what the actual figure is, but you know, an artist's got to live, and it's better than doing adverts all over everything. So if you purchase anything on Amazon, if you're going to get anything that I've recommended, I would really appreciate it if you'd use my link. If you are in the US, go to journalartista.com. That is Paula's website, and she has a store button that you can go and search for stuff, and she will get money if you buy it from the US. We're doing a little trade because she has UK people who would like to support her, and I have US people who would like to support me, but they can't, so we've traded links. So I hope that was useful, showing you how to test your pens and see what works and what doesn't, and you know, showing you how these journals work. It's very rare that I would actually say, yes, I think this is worth going and spending the money buying. I saw on Amazon these work out about £13. But in all honesty, it costs you twice that much to get Hobonichi, you know. And this is 600 pages. 600 pages! If you want a cheaper version, the MacLeod one does come in plain, but you have to order it from continental Europe. You can't get it. You have to order it from Spain. You can't get it here. You can only get the check pattern one in the 2 sizes, and you can get that in paper chase. So you can get the big one and the small one, but it's got a grid, which may not be suitable for what you want for a book of shadows. Certainly for a journal or a diary or a Hobonichi or planner or whatever, it's fine. But I would have thought for a book of shadows, most people wouldn't want grid, they'd want plain. So you would have to get that from the actual MacLeod site. MacLeod. Not Miguel Ruiz, people. That's why people can't find it, because you're pronouncing it Miguel Ruiz, and that's the Mexican version, I believe. It's Spanish, so it's MacLeod. It's confusing, I know. But if you look for the wrong spelling, you're not going to find it. MIQ. Yeah, so I very rarely recommend something, but if you want a good, thick journal, diary, book of shadows type something recipe book thing that has a good binding and is a good size and not too heavy and has lots of pages and takes a decent amount. I mean, you couldn't do heavy watercolours in this or anything like that. Although I do watercolours in it quite easily. I don't use a lot of water in my watercolours. I do illustration more than watercolour. If you're a proper watercolour artist, you'd hate this paper. If you do a lot of mixed media layering without acrylics, then you probably wouldn't like it either. But it does take acrylic paint perfectly. I will show you. I have quite a heavily decorated page back here somewhere. This is acrylic, watercolour, pencil, matte medium. Oops. I've had this laptop since 2008 and I still can't get used to which way the webcam goes. This was a tribute to Susie Ballou page for her book. This has got ink and acrylic and all sorts. Didn't bleed, didn't have any problems with it, didn't even warp particularly. Doubles as a brick for a personal protection weapon, exactly. You know, if you were very clever, you could hook this up in just the right way. You know, get a bit of a swing on it. You know, use it as a doorstop. Anyway, I'm gonna say I would recommend these books, which I don't say very often. Not for something that's a little bit... I mean, the little ones are not pricey. You can get them from Korea on eBay for about £2, and it takes a little while to get here. These are a bit pricier and harder to find. They are on AliExpress. They're on Amazon for, I think, £13 plus delivery. But again, 600 pages, 15 quid for a 600-page book is not that bad when you look at the price of these with crap paper. These are the Indra notebooks, and these can be anything up to 60 quid, these can cost. The cheapest I've found is about £30–35. You can get smaller ones for 20. But in this bigger, thicker size, these are 30-odd quid. So for £15 or so, you can get these instead with more pages and better paper. I think that's a good trade-off. So that might be something to put on Santa's wish list. I am going to go now because I'm desperate to have a drink. A hot drink, nice hot lemony cup of tea with some ginger in it. What should we do next week? Should we start on our Book of Shadows next week? I want to transfer... I want to do this live Witchy Wednesday as a regular thing now. It might not always be 3 hours, but I want to do it as a regular thing. I want to transfer all of this out of here into one of these. And obviously that involves redrawing some of this stuff. But I've already done a video on this, so I don't want to do that on film. I've already done that. When the recording is finished and it all goes live and everything else, and you can watch the replay, I will... words... put the link up for the previous videos where I've shown you bits of this that I've done. There are some bits like my Book of Shadows, my page for Gypsy, that I can bring across. So I can cut that out and bring it across, just take the backing off it. Probably unstick that quite easily with a bit of heat. Link to the video. Thank you, Bren. That's what I was trying to say. Is there a way to get a reminder for the live stream? Yes, there is. If you go to my Facebook page, facebook.com/... Oh, I can type now because I'm not on the camera. Hang on. Here we go. facebook.com/Rhomany's Realm. Okay, where did it go? It kicked me out of my own stream. Okay. I don't know if you can still hear me. I got kicked out of my own stream. I probably hit button wrong. There we go. facebook.com/Rhomany's Realm. That's my Facebook page. If you go to that and you click on, well, you can either subscribe to the whole page, give the page a like, that would be very nice. I'm very close to 1,000 subscribers, so that would be nice. But you don't have to follow the page, you don't have to like the page, you can just subscribe to the events. Just go to an event and click on subscribe to events underneath. Hi, Mickey. And you'll get a notification on Facebook. I also put out just before I stream on @Rhomany or @Rhomany's Realm on Twitter. And I usually tell you if I'm definitely going to do a live stream next week, and I am going to do a live stream next week. And I think we could start on our Books of Shadows, couldn't we? Start getting some stuff done. Maybe, actually, it's the wheel of the year, isn't it? It's Samhain, it's the start of the new year for witches. Maybe we could do some kind of a Samhain page to kick off our Book of Shadows. Obviously, if you're doing something that you would like it to be, here I've got my rituals, and here I've got this, and here I've got spells, and here I've got this, and here I've got tarot. You might want to divide your book up first. If you don't want to do that, then I like to work through the Wheel of the Year. That's what I plan to do with mine. So I've got a little section at the front that's going to be specifically about me, my beliefs, what I believe, that kind of stuff. Candy corn pumpkins. I love candy corn. I know in America it's classed as cheap candy, but we don't have anything like that here. Honey fudge is the closest, and I love candy corn. Bren is sending me some candy corn, isn't she sweet? And Lily sent me some. It's awesome. Anyway, as I was saying, I'm going to transfer some of this over, and I'm going to have a section at the front of my Book of Shadows that will be for general stuff, as opposed to specific things. Then what I plan to do is start somewhere in my book, just work through the Wheel of the Year, so that I can work through my book year after year after year, and I'll have a page here that might be about Halloween or Samhain this year. Might have a picture of my altar, I might put some correspondences, might put up some links, whatever, things I've found out, make some notes, whatever. Might have 5 or 6 pages by the time I've finished, and then, by next year, maybe back here somewhere, I'll have another page on Samhain. And then maybe, in a couple of years, back here somewhere, I'll have another page. So I'll see, additional research and additional things. I'd quite like to do that, just work through the Wheel of the Year. And I've also got the Timothy somebody, 101 Days. It's a Wicca book, but it's quite eclectic. I will make a note so that I remember to put it in my... Do you know, I might just use this for notes. Because this paper is all right for gel pen. Doesn't like pencil though, so that's not a good idea. Gel pen works on this paper. I might just use it for notes and ideas for my Book of Shadows and things like that. Be a shame to waste it. And then when it's full, I can take all this paper out and start again with nice paper. So the Wheel of the Year, Samhain. Perhaps we could start with, how about, since colouring books are the big thing at the moment, how about we do a colouring book page as like a front page for Samhain? So if you wanted to, you could spend the next week doing some research, or, if you want to find out new stuff or find recipes or anything that you could use around Samhain. I know some of you are beginners and starting your Book of Shadows from scratch, and others of you probably have a whole section on Samhain already. So you might just want to add a little bit to it, or you might want to read through what you've already got and update it. Because there will be things that you've written 3 years ago that are no longer relevant to you because your ideas have changed. Or you've moved, or in my case, I no longer have Gypsy, unfortunately. So I no longer have a familiar at the moment. So there's different things that you can update about your Book of Shadows as you go along. And then on the show next week, we'll spend some time with our colouring books doing a frontis page for Samhain. So you don't have to buy colouring books, by the way. Go on Pinterest and look for free colouring pages, Halloween, and you will find free colouring pages that people have drawn and put out there, showing, various different things that you could use for Halloween. Speaking of Halloween, just to update you, this guy yeah, Halloween, Samhain, it's all the same thing. This guy is... Isn't he awesome? He's got a sensor, a motion sensor, but I don't have it turned off, otherwise he'd go off every 5 minutes when I'm sitting at my desk. But when I'm not sitting at my desk, I turn him on. At the moment, I'm just pressing his button. This is Quoth the Raven. 10 out of 10 to anybody who gets that reference. It's very Granny Weatherwax. So, yes, his name is Quoth. I got this in Asda, by the way, if you're curious and you want one. I just love him. I couldn't leave him there. He was the only one left and I couldn't leave him there. Right, so next week... well, yes, it is from Quoth the Raven Nevermore, Edgar Allan Poe, but it's from... the actual characters from Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett, in his Discworld novels, has a raven called Quoth. And that's like the running joke through the book, is Quoth the Raven. And they always call him Quoth the Raven. They never call him just Quoth. He's always Quoth the Raven. There's even at one point, I can't remember which character it is, I think it might be one of the witches actually. Somebody says, "Oh yes, this is Quoth the Raven," and snickers. And they went, "Not again." Anyway, if you want to come and join us on Facebook in the group, facebook.com/ I think it's groups/ Witchy Wednesday. But I can't remember, honestly. I can never remember the link. Maybe I need to rename it. I will put it, once the video is finished uploading and everything, I will put it in the links down below. So on the replay, you'll be able to get it. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for joining me. Oh, my chat suddenly went crazy. Thank you for joining me. Hope to see you next week with your Books of Shadows, or at the very least, just a piece of paper that you can do some colouring on and prepare for your Book of Shadows even if you don't have it. Bye.